Alrighty, sir. What's your name and what rank did you attain in your service?
My name is Larry Sharp, and I ETS'd. I got out as a Specialist 4, a E4, equal to a corporal.
I'm Robert Provart. This is my oldest daughter, Michelle. I retired in 1980 as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force.
My name is Bob Dewalt, retired as an Air Force colonel.
Stephen R. Ellis.
James J. Brown Jr., Egg 4.
George Smiley, Major, 04.
I'm Gene Bayless. I retired as a Brigadier General, 1-star General in the U.S. Army.
Gary Lane, Spec 5.
Mike Shack.
Bob McAdams.
I was an E5 sergeant.
Same.
I'm Norita Cruz.
And I'm Vicki Plain, Sergeant E5.
I was also an E5 in the Navy. It's Petty Officer 2nd Class, and for me specifically, I was Gunner's Mate, Petty Officer 2nd Class.
Where did you serve?
Well, I served in Korea, not during the big war, but Korea and stateside, and also all throughout Europe.
Vietnam War.
I started out, was commissioned at University of Tennessee. I was in the ROTC program back in 1965 when I graduated. So 35 years later, I finished my tour, and I've been retired for about 20 years.
Let's see, my last duty station was Texas. I was in Germany for a little while.
I was originally stationed in Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. I was a sergeant in charge of communications, crypto gear. Transferred to Guam, which is a SAC base. We sent out sorties into Vietnam.
Well, I was in from 1980 all the way up till 2005, so I've been all over the place. In the Gulf War era, I've also been in when we were doing Grenada in 1983. I was in the Middle East when we had Operation Southern Watch, and so various conflicts that I was in during that era.
Just to the Middle East and to Mediterranean.
I served during Desert Storm. I didn't make it to country, but I was at Fort Riley, Kansas, and I was medical there, and I was taking care of the troops that came back.
I served from 06 to 2011, so OEF, OIF. My first deployment was a Western Pacific deployment. I flew out and met the ship who was already about halfway through the deployment in the Persian Gulf, so I flew into Bahrain.
I had 3 tours in Vietnam. I was assigned to Strategic Air Command and flew 209 combat sorties into B-52 over Vietnam.
What is the biggest takeaway that you think the military has given you?
It changed my whole life. It changed my whole life. It gives you a whole different perspective. You know, you're serving your country, and there's nothing better than that.
I had good assignments. The Army treated me well, and can't say enough about the military.
I'm a member of that group that says everybody ought to put a couple of years in when they're young, you know. There should be some kind of a program where you could contribute and really learn about the freedoms that people fought and died for this country.
If you live in the land of milk and honey, you should protect the land of milk and honey.
It was my honor to serve. I wanted to serve. My draft number was 300 and something. I probably would have never been called, but I joined.
So it gives you a love of this country. When you live in other countries and you see how some people have to live and the hypocrisy that goes on in some other countries, when you come back to America, you realize that you've taken this for granted. This is the most wonderful country in the world. And you only know that if you've gone out and seen other places.
How would you guess that most of your colleagues look back at their service?
I started at the University of Tennessee in the 60s. Military was looked on pretty favorably at that time, but as we got involved in Vietnam, of course, the history speaks for itself, you know. So it took us 10, 15 years to overcome that, but successfully did. And in the late 70s, I would say, we started rebuilding the military.
I can't answer you that because we just lost George. I don't know what. I don't know where they are or what happened to them or anything. You know, we just got out of touch.
I left Vietnam in Vietnam. It's only been the last year I made any kind of connection or even talked about Vietnam.
Interesting.
And I just got with 3 of my friends over 50 years ago. We were in Vietnam together. and they live in the area of all things. Our reunion for the 577 is in Pigeon Forge this year in September, and so I'm going to make my very first reunion. I went to a reunion in Branson, drove 7.5 hours, pulled up in the parking lot, took a look around, seen the veterans there, turned around, drove 7.5 hours back home. I couldn't get out and do it.
Most of them that I know that were drafted are bitter. And especially those that came back, you know, without an arm, without a leg, or, you know, the most serious wound of all, a wound of the heart and a wound of the mind.
Well, I think most of them will feel the same way I do, but some folks, just like people that weren't in the military, handle things differently.
Right.
So some people have challenges as a result of their military service, and understandably so.
You've got people that are 20 years old that serve. You got people that are 80 years old that serve. And we all have that commonality. Everybody's proud of their service. You know, you're proud that you got to do something to serve the country, and that'll stick with me the rest of my life. I'll always be proud of that.
The camaraderie and family that you choose of your own is one of those things that, you know, just about every veteran I know has had that experience. And I mean, that's like you're out here tonight at a gathering of veterans from all different eras and services and ranks, and we're all just out here to enjoy spending time together. It's one of those bonds that is really hard to find.
We're
anywhere
brothers
else.
and we're sisters.
How did your time serving have any lasting effects on you and your loved ones?
2 hours ago, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer from Agent Orange.
They were pretty upset about it, but I was scared, but I'm glad I went. Served my country.
Well, I've had some medical difficulties that's been attributed to Agent Orange, and it's affected her probably more than any of the other two kids, because when I was gone and when I was back home and back and forth after 3 tours.
Fireworks on July the 4th, you know, my brother will dive under the table if you don't know they're coming.
The Army taught me discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily how to behave properly, but how to lead my life.
Sir, do you have any regrets from your time serving?
No,
No regrets.
I'm proud.
If I had it to do again, I would do it all over again.
I think my regrets are I would have loved to have gone and stationed in different parts of the world that I didn't get to go station in.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time in the Pacific, in the Mideast. I spent some business trip, you know, anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months in places, but I'd love to have gotten stationed in Europe for 3 or 4 years.
No,
No regrets.
no,
Never would have done anything differently?
not in Vietnam, no. I'd like to have elected some different officials before I left.
No regrets.
If I were my age now with what I know, I probably would think differently, but for the time, the skills I gained from it, I absolutely needed it.
Sir, do you have any regrets?
No.
Not one.
No.
And
I
I'll
went
tell you
in 19 days after my 17th birthday.
what, I would do it again.
We didn't do a very good job of kicking their ass and getting out of there, and we lost 58,000 kids over there, and for what? The NVA, they still took over South Vietnam. Saigon is now Ho Chi Minh City, and I'm sure there's some of these old veterans that are flipping in their graves now, knowing that, what did I lose my life for? You know, those kids are never gonna get married or have kids or enjoy any life because they're gone for what? So, in that sense, I've got some regrets. On the flip side, as I said, you know, probably if I had it to do over again, I would do it again.
And sir, last question. What is your go-to story when somebody asks you?
Oh, my go-to story that I can give you on tape?
Yeah.
Okay. In Bosnia they were getting killed over there, and so the bad guys were saying, if you don't leave your house within 5 minutes, we're going to shoot you. When they got to the base where we were at, our boss says, look, let's go see what we can do to help. But we had military uniforms on. And so for those folks, the only people they'd ever seen with military uniforms were shooting them. And so they were scared to come out of the barracks where they had them, trying to resettle them. So we decided to go down and play soccer with them, because everybody knows how to play soccer, right? And some of the elder gentlemen come over with a translator and they say, thank you so much for your hospitality, but we don't know any of you people. We've never met you. We don't understand why you're being so nice and giving us food and shelter and giving us a place where we can raise our families. Why are you doing that? And I was kind of taken aback, not knowing what to say. And one of our young troops, who's probably 20 years old, walked over and he says, well, I can tell you why, because we're Americans and that's what we do.
Getting to dive off the ship above the Marianas Trench, which is the deepest part of the ocean, it's just this surreal feeling.
We had 61 tractor trailers, like you see, going up down the highway, and 121 fuel trailers. I was a young second lieutenant, and at the time, supposed to have a contingent of about 7 officers, and because of Vietnam, I ended up being the only one in there. But I found out early on to let the men know that I didn't ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. So I learned how to drive the tractor and trailer, and I'd go out with them. We had missions all over Germany, primarily down in Bavaria, of supplying fuel to all the frontline units at the time. They're deployed along the border and all. This is back in the Cold War era.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the respect of the men and the women later on. By leading from the front, showing them I was able to do that, you know, I got their respect. And I think something like that would apply to any job that you've got.
My go-to story is, you know, just the ugly truth of it all, you know, that I didn't want to go. I wasn't looking forward to going, and I got drafted. And you got no choice then. I had my share of PTSD when I got out. I was mad. I was mad that I got drafted. I was mad that my buddies got killed. I was mad that I got drafted and some senator's son did not get drafted. You know, just a lot of resentment, if I could be totally frank. What I didn't count on, and it was the only way to come out of it, I didn't know it then, but I can certainly preach it now, is love. I actually met a little lady, and you know, she understood me, and I could talk to her freely.
Whenever you go somewhere, they always tell you, this is the list of the places that you should not go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because that's where all the best fun happens.
Yes.
If you don't get caught.
Yes.
So there's a lot of stories with that, and a lot of them involve a lot of questionable decisions, alcohol, questionable behaviors and morals,
and miracle that I'm still alive. Yeah. It was fun. What you can remember.
Helping people is what we do, and I'm real proud to be a part of that legacy.
Well, sir, that's beautiful. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for answering my questions.
All right, thank you.